Alrighty, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's weather chat. I'm meteorologist Timmy Albertson. We have ourselves some severe thunderstorms to talk about. In fact, some of them are even rotating a little bit here. We have ourselves kind of a nice system that's making its way through the Midwest, and in doing so, it is producing enough of kind of an unstable environment as well as enough wind shear going on that we are actually seeing some of these storms rotating. And we're not talking about the deep south, we're talking about, well, the Midwest. Case in point, Illinois. Let's go ahead, folks, and take a look on over here at our good friend, the radar imagery. We're taking a look at a couple of storms this evening across parts of northern Illinois. And kind of the one that's really sticking out right now is this one near the Atkinson area. If we take a look at it here on the radar imagery, we have ourselves kind of a nice, what looks to be kind of a supercell here. No, well, I guess it is a supercell. Not kind of, it is. All right, we got ourselves the inflow here right about there. We have some of that air kind of getting pulled down here a little bit. And if we take a look at this radar image, we can see at least we did on the last radar scan, a little bit of a hook there. But if we took a look over at the velocity, we are seeing that the couplet here is actually pretty nice, and it does look like it's actually being tagged as a tornado observed right now. So let's go ahead and see if we can't maybe find it here a little bit on the correlation coefficient. A little bit tricky to see right now there, but most likely something is on the ground. Take a look here. That is a very nice little couplet there. So for those of you who don't know what we're looking at here on this particular radar imagery, this is known as a velocity radar image here. And basically what this radar image right here, this one that we're looking at, not this one over here, but what we're looking at here is the basically the winds within the thunderstorm here. So the radar site in this case is Davenport, Iowa, so a little further off towards the west. And what we are seeing here is the red colors are winds that are going away from the radar site, and greens are winds that are going towards the radar site. And we tend to see them kind of grouped up like this in high numbers. Well, it gives us a good indication that there's probably some rotation ongoing, if not, possibly even sometimes treadle on the ground, depending upon how strong it is. Now, in meteorology over time, we've been using these radars for quite a while now that, we do have some algorithms, when we start seeing certain values, depending upon how far away from the radar you are, it's generally kind of a good assumption that there is something on the ground. But in this situation here, it is actually observed here. So if we kind of were to take a look at this, tornado warning, confirmed tornado was located near Atkinson. Again, that's this town that you see. We'll get that off here. Right here is Atkinson. So that tornado, if it is on the tornado that is observed right now, is actually located just to the southeast of Atkinson, heading more somewhere towards the town of Annawan. So again, that's kind of what we're seeing right now with this particular thunderstorm, or at least this particular one. Again, it looks very nice here on the radar image. The previous scan, right when we hopped in, looked a little bit better, but this is still a pretty good supercell nonetheless. Again, we can see here's where the hail is falling there. Again, right about in that area here. We won't go into all the physics of the supercell tonight, but again, here's that warm inflow notch right here. And then, of course, we have some of that rain-cooled air getting pulled in, kind of wrapping around this overall thing. And actually, to be quite honest with you, it looks like if there is, this is probably it right here on the radar imagery here. So again, we got that rain-cooled air kind of being pulled in, kind of on the back side of it here, as well as that inflow right there. And you can kind of see how it lines right up. And again, there is probably our tornado right there. Well, I guess there is our tornado there. Now, again, how strong it is, well, we're not quite sure. We'll have to kind of wait for damage surveys to be done here. But based on this is certainly not an F0. But you can kind of see there. Now, again, sometimes with these storms, what we do see is they kind of sometimes occlude themselves a little bit. We'll kind of see it go back into the storm, and that could kind of interrupt the flow. But, we talk about some of these big, long track tornadoes a lot of times, and that storm is moving at just the right speed and direction that it kind of prevents sometimes that. Well, more or less kind of that hook through here. But I mean, taking a look right now here at the radar scan, I mean, overall, it is very impressive with this thunderstorm here. Brand new tornado warning now is just put in for it. Let's take a look here. This is likely going to be not so much for hail now, but they got a confirmed tornado was located over and on or about 10 miles north of Kanawha, moving east at about 30 miles an hour. Again, this is observed tornado, but again, just quite how strong, not 100% sure, at least as of right now, but certainly a decent one nonetheless. Here's the town of Anawan right here. Again, there's that rotation. You can see it's probably going to clip it, probably clip it out, or maybe even possibly go pretty much right over here on I-80. Now, I've actually been around this area before, and actually, what's very interesting is I was actually just around this area the other day. Should have stayed, but overall, that's what we're looking at here. In fact, if we zoom out a little bit, this is still a pretty decent signature here. You could just kind of see it here more or less, looking at it big picture wise. So what we call this in meteorology is kind of a discrete supercell. This thunderstorm is by itself per se. It's not right up against another thunderstorm, and that is very good. If you are a supercell thunderstorm and you are trying to produce a tornado, you don't want anything interfering with your inflow, that warm air not trying to come in there. Again, we don't have any activity right down here. So again, that puts this storm in a good position for at least working on its own. We call it discrete. I don't know why, because thunderstorms are not discrete, but you get the idea there. It's kind of by itself. Now, earlier we were taking a look at this thunderstorm, did have a little bit of rotation, but it seems like that's kind of been cut away. You can see kind of a little bit of the remnant here. Be interesting to see what comes from that. But latest scan here really shows this is a really decent signature now, really coming up here just to the north of town of Allen, just passing right over I-80. Looks like it might kind of clip maybe the northern portion here, maybe some of the fringe locations right outside that town there, but right now still generally kind of looks like it's over rural area. We'll see here maybe if we can't get the correlation coefficient up, see if maybe we can see something here. And still a little tricky to tell here. Typically what we're going to look for when we look at this radar here is, this, at least on this color scale, we're looking for those kind of deep blues here. And what this is actually doing is it's picking up uh, uh, the size of objects in the air. Again, one of the benefits of having a dual pole radar, you've got a beam that goes out this way, another beam that comes out that way, so it's able to kind of detect at least the size of objects in the air. Now, that being said, when we're looking at rain or precipitation, the correlation tends to be pretty high. Everything is the same size. But when we have a tornado that is going over a town, it tends to pick up things, trees, houses, roofs, you name it. And so again, those are all very different sized objects, and so the correlation of that begins to drop down. Again, not everything is the same. So that's what this radar is showing here. A little hard to tell right now exactly where it is. At least using this. Again, it's over rural area right now, folks. I mean, listen, it's the end of February, okay? We don't exactly have trees growing. We don't exactly have crops out in the field right now. So if anything, this thing's just picking up maybe a little bit in the way of, well, I guess tumbleweeds. That's about it, really. So again, we'll kind of keep an eye here to see maybe as it passes over. But right now, again, this thing is primarily in a rural area, which of course does make surveying it a little bit tricky here. Latest radar scan still showing that notch there. Again, if we kind of zoom out a little bit, and it looks like they're expecting this thing is going to track just straight off to the east. Again, they're still calling it a observed tornado, at least for right now. And it has been observed that there is a tornado, at least on the ground, at least last time this was updated. Now, with that in mind, and again, taking a look at it here, there's certainly, if there's nothing on the ground, at least at this point, there is certainly something very close there. Again, we tend to see this kind of a signature. Again, we tend to be talking about something that's probably going to be on the ground. Let's take a look here. We also got ourselves another tornado warning, and this is actually all the way a little bit closer to the Chicago area. Let's see if we can't flip over to their radar and see what's going on here. Again, this is not quite as defined of a rotation signature as what we saw with the other storm, but it is certainly there nonetheless. Again, we kind of have this more or less kind of cluster of these storms here. We get enough little inflow here and there, and that's kind of the area that we're keeping an eye on. Just to the west Brooklyn and the Compton area there outside of Chicago. Again, about probably an hour and a half so drive outside of downtown Chicago. Again, kind of another rural area per se. I mean, obviously there are some towns around here, but for the most part, This isn't exactly the west suburbs here of Chicago, so still kind of somewhat of a rural area. Overall, again, that's kind of the setup, at least some of our stronger storms right now. And again, if we were to take back a look kind of here at the kind of a little bit of the atmospheric setup that's going on here, I'll see maybe if we can't pull up some. Well, that's not what we needed. Let's go ahead here and well, there we go. Having ourselves a fun little time here. I got so many tabs open, but long story short, we got a pretty decent low pressure that is tracking its way through. Let's see maybe if we can't pull it up on here. Just kind of get a nice little view here. Let's see if we can't turn it on. So we're going to take a look here. One particular map here. Again, we got this pretty decent cold front cutting its way through parts of the Midwest right now, and get that out of the way. Pretty decent cold front here. Little waves of low pressure riding along it, and overall, it's helping to produce again some of that unstable weather. Now, of course, we're talking a little bit more about that on the live stream right now. This is actually kind of pre-recorded here, so depending upon what time this gets uploaded, well, it depends on the time that you're going to be seeing it. But you get the idea. All righty, everyone. So with that in mind here, I actually got to hop over to that live stream here. They're probably wondering where I went. Just wanted to do a quick little weather chat here with you, and we'll talk more about the setup and all this much later. But for right now, I think it's just kind of a good little, it's a little early severe weather event here. Certainly, nonetheless. And again, I just want to go back really quickly here to this fun little guy. Let's take a look here. I want to double check on this thing. Let's see what the latest radar scan showing of this. And looks like the rotation not quite as strong as we were seeing it. Looks like the signature has dropped off a little bit, but certainly still a storm that is worth watching. Alrighty, everybody. Well, I mean, like I said, it's still got a pretty decent signature on it, but not quite as tight as what we had saw. But that doesn't necessarily mean that this storm is done. Sometimes these guys like to cycle a little bit. Alrighty, everyone. Well, I thank you for joining me on tonight's weather chat. Again, no, it was kind of a quick one. We'll talk more about the setup of all this tomorrow. But in the meantime, hope you all have a good rest of your evening. And as always, enjoy that weather.